Hey, I'm Olly Hill, carpenter, make furniture under the name Mena Woodwork. Yeah, I did the apprenticeship at St Austell College, and then still did the apprenticeship for 3 years, and then I just worked on site for 15 years, doing joinery, building the workshop up slowly. Yeah, I loved every second of it. Did not enjoy building the sites. Then I fell in accidentally to garden furniture. It was just everything aligned. I started working with garden designers, and just saw there was a little opening, a little niche for some slightly less traditional furniture, but modern. And it's just grown slowly over the years to what it is now. I designed all the furniture about 4 years ago. And then came the hard bit, made the furniture, designed the furniture, and then actually getting people to buy it was probably more of the challenge. Then we had to sort of like think about marketing, branding. And it's just, again, it's just steadily grown. And the idea of it is to make modern furniture, really simple looking furniture, where the detail is in the joinery. It might look just like a corner, and I felt like it where it looks like a corner, and then when you look at it, you see the intricacy and the detail. That's the idea. Hopefully people see that. The design process is quite something I've had to really work out a method for doing it, because my background isn't in design. My background was in carpentry and joinery. I had no design background. So I like to work within parameters, which for a chair is quite easy. There's things that don't change. It's the height of the chair. It's based on the average human, so that doesn't change. The length of the seat, the height of the backrest, the angle, all those are fixed. With the table I nearly went mad. 2 weeks just tweaking the legs, the splays, the angles. It was horrible, but got there in the end. It's an ongoing process because, for instance, I've had things where I thought the design was pretty good, but then when you try and make it profitably, it doesn't work. It's too complicated, it's too material greedy, and you have to rethink things. So with the coffee tables I make, there was an old design which it was great, but it couldn't make it profitably, so I just changed it. So it's a small range, but it's always evolving. So that was actually when I first set out to design the range of furniture. That was I went in my head for ages. I was going between oak, Iroko, and cedar. I eliminated the cedar. Looks beautiful, very little movement, just too soft. You couldn't like a rivet on a pair of jeans would dent the cedar, so that was dismissed. Iroko, I just hate working with it. The smell, the dust, I was like, I'm not doing that. Oh yeah. So the oak, and the beauty of the oak is as well, it's outdoor furniture, and the way the oak weathers really complements gardens, that lovely silver natural tone. Garden designers, the feedback I was getting at the time was that they like oak. So it was oak, and it does move. There is movement issues with it, but I think it's important to not try and fight that, work with it. So the example here actually this is a connection for bench legs, bench top. So oak obviously shrinks a lot when we have a bit of a heat wave. So if you were to just screw that together, when it shrinks, all the loads will go on the fixing and it would get out eventually. So by making a sided dovetail like this, zero tolerance, that will then be oiled and hammered in. It takes the negative side, the movement, and turns it into a huge positive, because that will go through with zero tolerance. And then as the wood tries to shrink and move, it will just lock the dovetail. If it tries to shrink off, it's going to pull against the shoulders. If that tries to twist, again, it's going to pull. But vitally, it will allow the wood to expand across the grain. So, yeah, the movement in oak is an issue, but if you just think around the problem and use it to your advantage, it's not a problem. And it's, again, it's one of those tiny little features which give us the work, the detail. This stuff, the structural pieces are prime air dried normally, European oak, and then with the chairs, the steam bed pieces, got a little bit more leeway with that because it's not a structured element. It's fully supported, fixed in 3 places. so you can use wood with far more character. So this stuff, most of this oak, I try and buy from Braconic Estate where my workshop is. They have a water-powered sawmill and they're very kindly let me have a play on it. Has some quite interesting grade and patterning in that oak. Our oak are my least favourite. Absolutely hate it. Smell-wise, cedar, Western red cedar, like perfume, love having that in the workshop. But my personal favourite actually is I like it when you just pick up some random hardwood from the UK which has been felled and you don't really know what it is, and just taking a big old dusty piece of wood, like something like this. Just something gnarly, horrible, and just playing it up and seeing what you got, that little surprise. Not great for running a successful business, you end up with a lot of wastage, but I still like the little, seeing what you got, the surprise, playing it back, seeing the grain. It's big. It's quite big. Really badly insulated, so it gets hot and then it gets cold. As I said, I think 50 degrees is the biggest temperature swing from like August to January. It's actually pretty good for outdoor furniture because the wood's all acclimatised to being outdoors. And the worst thing that happens is in the winter. We've had a few days where we've had warm weather, then it's coming wet and cold and everything's condensed. And I'll come in just to like dripping water. It only happens like once a year. Because this actually used to be a drying shed for the estate, so it's made to have the wind blowing through it so they can dry timber in here, which is a happy accident for outdoor furniture because everything's nicely acclimatised.
Yeah.
I think it's about 12 metres by 6. I like, my real like wood geeky passion is to just take a process and make it as efficient as possible. So while I do like doing bespoke stuff, what I generally find is that I'll do a bespoke project, say someone wants a bespoke table. I'll make it and I think, oh, I've done that so much quicker. I made a jig for this, like a template of that. So what I do like is, for instance, with making the Hewers chair, every time I make it, I just shave a little bit of time off it, make it a little bit more accurate through making a jig or a template or just refining the process. So that's what I like, is just taking an existing process and just refining it down. I suppose a lot of people say like price increase. That's just life. Prices always go up. So that's just something you have to suck up. It is annoying. I think the biggest challenge is taking a product. You can make a chair or a table. You can make a great chair or table. It doesn't mean that you can turn that into a profitable business. The biggest challenge I face is designing something and then making it in a way where you can build a business around it. So that may just be a case of refining the processes, streamlining the processes, tweaking the design to work with the machinery you've got, and taking that product and making it profitable, really. And I tend to focus on the process rather than the cost of the materials because I can control the process. I can't control the price of materials, unfortunately. Not so much with the outdoor furniture because you set up a business, you got a lot of personal investment in that, it sort of laser focuses you. But in my whole woodworking career, God, yeah. I mean, I made the whole gable end of my house fall down once. I made a big set of doors to go across the back of the house, and I had to put steel in. So I had some friends around me, propped it all up, knocked out what was underneath, and there was like one brick, and just knocked the brick out and the whole end of the house fell down. Luckily my wife was away for the weekend and didn't see it, so I just had to rebuild. It was a bungalow, luckily, so it wasn't a big wall, but it was still like 20 dumper trucks of rubble I had to remove. That was the end of my house. The steel was easy to put up afterwards. A couple of my friends recorded it, but I still can't even look at the footage. I've never looked at it. The biggest thing that's helped me in woodwork is, it sounds like rubbish, The British cycling team, I listened to a podcast and they were talking about marginal gains, and they were talking about improving every part of the bike to be able to win the Olympics. And I was like, rubbish. And I was like, can't apply it to woodwork. So what I did, take making the viewers chat, it's really hard just to say, I'm going to make it better. Well, what does it mean? You know, unless you swap out a load of machinery and invest loads of money in that, what can you do? So with the marginal gains, what I decided to do was every step of the way, I just decided to try and make it 1% better. So even down to like marking timber out with a pencil. Instead of a blunt pencil that leaves like a 2mm line, you sharpen the pencil, you leave a 1mm line. Or even better, you take a Stanley knife and leave like a 0.1mm line. So you just increase, that really simple thing increases your accuracy by like 2mm. Cut it both ends of a piece of wood, that's 4mm. And it's game changing. Just doing that at every step of the build. So just making sure your saw is calibrated to exactly 90 degrees takes seconds. But all those little incremental changes throughout a job, maybe 100 of them, adds up. You don't notice you're doing them, and at the end you go, that went really well, it's all looking crisp, and it wasn't much effort. And that's my biggest tip. If you're a bit of a novice, I think there's great value in reverse engineering other people's work. So you then get in their mind of how they went through the processes. You end up with something which is beautiful because you just copied someone else. I remember a few years ago, my whole family got Tom Rathfield lamps for Christmas because I went on his website, didn't tell him, get sued, and just worked backwards through what they did. And it gave me an insight into how you think when you're producing furniture in a business. And it's just a real nice way of woodworking. If you can get your hands on something, a chair, and you can pick it up, look at it, just try and reverse engineer it and make it yourself. I always find like you can look at two tables and they're essentially the same. It's a top and four legs. One table will look rubbish, and one table looks great. And it's mainly down to proportions. So instead of making your own table and fluffing it up, just copy an existing table that has beautiful proportions. I made my mum a Jasper Conran table once. Just copied all the measurements, traced the pitch image into a 3D design program, got all the angles. And it gives you a real insight into design then and process, and you end up with a fake Tom Rathfield now, a Tim Rothfield, or a fake Jasper Conran table. This thing is an original idea, isn't it? Just... Really, the most fundamental tools, the ones that mean the most, are the tools that allow me to take sawn rough timber and process it into plain timber, because it's the most cost-effective way of buying wood. It allows me to then be very selective about what pieces I use, and then to be able to use offcuts, I can reprocess them. So it has to be a bandsaw and a planer thickness set. Yeah, without them, I'll just be pretty stuck. I don't know what it's like now, because obviously I went through the education apprenticeship system 25 years ago. But when I did, apprenticeships were seen as a backup plan for the kids which weren't academically gifted, and it was a battle to get an apprenticeship. So what you end up with is, labour shortage, which we've seen in the past. So I don't know what the system's like now. I hope it's been improved and that apprenticeships are more open to all people. But yeah, it was hard to get an apprenticeship. I was very lucky. I had a great guy, Will Gelston, taught me, and I went through college, but it was a battle to get the apprenticeship. And I think that more emphasis needs to be put on teaching young people trades and projecting it as a viable path out of school rather than just a safety net. My favourite woodworking tip. On the Hewers chair, this is an upright piece and a brace comes across here, slots into that gap. Obviously, piece of wood that comes across, this isn't it, it's too small. Has to fit in there perfectly. If you use a block plane and you just plane that piece of timber down until it fits, inevitably it's going to be too small. So if it goes in with no resistance and fits perfectly, it's too small. And this is probably going to shrink when the sun hits it, and a gap will open up. So my top tip, produce that 1/2 mil to 1 mil over size, and then compress the fibres. So use a hammer with rounded edges, so you've got no sharp edges, and just go over this and just compress that end of that piece of timber. Then compress it enough, it will just slot in, but you haven't removed the material, it's still there. Eventually, when it rains, that will pop back and just tighten up in that joint, and it'll be rock solid. And then you've also got that bit of contingency then for shrinkage. So when it does shrink back, you've got tension in the joint and it's still going to push out on the shoulders. So that's my tip.